Hello fellow hunters, JBiz Hunts here, back with another informative video. Today we're diving into one of the most frequently asked questions in the Hunter Call to Wild: how do respawns work? It's a topic that every player has wondered about at some point, and I'm here to explain it as simply and clearly as I can based on what we've come to understand about respawns. Respawns are a key factor in everything from casual hunting to herd management, so knowing how they work can make a huge difference in your gameplay. Now, here's the kicker. Expansive Worlds has never fully revealed the mechanics behind respawns, but thanks to the awesome Call to Wild community, we've developed a pretty solid idea on how it all might fit together. So grab your gear and let's dive into part one of this two-part video series on how respawns work. Before we can truly dive into how respawns work, we need to understand animal populations. When you enter a map for the first time, the game generates a population file that determines the number of animals on your map. For easy math and visualization, let's assume your map has 100 fallow deer. Out of that population, there will always be a higher percentage of females. For instance, you might have 40 males and 60 females making up the 100 fallow deer on your map. At any given time, your map will maintain this total population. It won't grow or shrink beyond that number unless you are actively harvesting animals and wait for their respawns. This balance ensures that every map feels full of life while maintaining a consistent ratio of males to females and total population for each animal species. So, why more females? The game intentionally skews the population towards females because in most cases, it's the males that make up the bulk of the main trophies. Males are the ones with impressive antlers or huge horns and the potential to become diamonds or even great ones, making them highly sought after as opposed to the females. However, there are some species that the females do make diamond, like Gemsbok as an example, that you shouldn't ignore them as well when you're trophy hunting. When it comes to the male population, the game's population file will skew the majority of the herd toward the middle levels. Using fallow deer as an example, bucks can have a difficulty level of 1 through 5, with 5 being max level. So the population will have 1 to maybe 3 level 1s on the map. Similarly, there'll be 1 to maybe 3 max level fallow deer level 5 on your map as well. However, the majority of the males will fall between levels 2, 3, and 4, creating sort of a bell curve distribution, with most of the males being level 3. This design explains why diamonds are so rare, even in your initial population file. Most males will be average in size and level, making it a real accomplishment to find and harvest a diamond level animal of any species. This takes us to our main question: how respawns work. The game is designed so that when you shoot and harvest an animal, the harvested animal must be replaced by the same species and gender. For example, if you shoot a male fallow deer, only a male fallow deer will respawn in its place. It won't come back as a female or as a completely different species. While the respawns is guaranteed to be the same species and gender, there is a layer of randomness. We know this in the game as RNG, random number generation, that makes this game so exciting and addictive. The new animal could have many potentials. The new respawn could be of higher, lower, or identical level compared to the one you just harvested. It could have the same fur variation or a completely different one. It also has a chance to spawn with a rare fur coat, like an albino or melanistic, which has a spawn rate of roughly 1 in 2,000. It also could have a new trophy score, with a new medal rating ranging from bronze, silver, gold, or even diamond. This unpredictability keeps the game fresh and replayable. Every shot you take carries the potential for an incredible surprise, like a rare fur variation or a trophy-worthy diamond. And it's this randomness that makes the Hunter Call to Wild such an exciting experience every time you hit the field. Now that you know the basics, when you shoot a male fallow deer, it will respawn as another male fallow deer, random in size, level, and fur variation compared to the one you harvested. The next key factor in understanding respawns is their zones. The type of zone an animal belongs to will largely dictate where its respawn might appear. In the Hunter Call to Wild, there are 3 types of zones: solo zones, herd zones, and pair zones. Each of these zone types impacts the way animals respawn and where you'll need to look for them afterwards. Let's break them down. Solo zones occur when you find only one animal in a need zone and can occur with any species. However, these zones are typically associated with predators in the classes 3 to 9 range, such as bears, bobcats, Eurasian lynx, tigers, snow leopards, and lions. Certain species are more prone to having solo zones than others. There's a skill called Track Knowledge that is a Tier 1 skill under the Stalker class tree. It increases the amount of information gained by investigation of animal tracks. The second level of this skill reveals information about an approximate animal group size when investigating need zone tracks that allows you to highlight a need zone and see how many animals frequent it. This can help you confirm whether it's a solo zone or not. What happens when you harvest a solo zone animal? The zone disappears entirely from your map. The respawn animal creates a new need zone for drinking, feeding, or resting, which you'll need to rediscover. Depending on the species, the new zone could appear anywhere on the map or within their specific home range. For example, when grinding for the Great One Black Bear, the randomness of these respawns can make it incredibly time-consuming to track down new solo zones. This is why dealing with solo zone males during herd management can be very challenging. The next type of zone will be herd zones. Herd zones can occur when multiple animals share a single need zone, like a group of animals drinking at a water source. Most herd zones will consist of 1 to 2 males, with the rest being females. Key tips for herd zone management. It's always best to check the need zone indicator to confirm the number of animals in the zone. Sometimes a solo zone can share the same spot as your herd zone, which might affect the respawns. How it affects this is because you could shoot the solo male expecting it to respawn in the same place, however it has respawned somewhere else in the map. Harvesting an animal from a herd zone won't delete the zone. You can then return to the same location during active hours to check for the respawn. A herd zone will continue to produce respawns unless you shoot down the zone to one solo animal. At that point, it becomes a solo zone and you will not get any respawns at that location and must just shoot it down. This predictability makes herd zones ideal for grinding, especially for great ones. Since you know where their respawn will occur, it's easier to track whether that level 4 moose you harvested came back as a diamond with a rare fur variation, or even better, came back as a great one. Last zone would be pair zones. Pair zones are unique and most often associated with small predators and some small deer species. These became more widely recognized during the Red Fox Great One grind, where it was observed that red foxes, as well as gray and Tibetan foxes, often spawn in pairs. Similarly, species like the red muntjac on Sunder Patan also tend to form pair zones. What is really important to know about pair zones is that animals in a pair zone won't respawn until both animals are harvested. For example, if you shoot a male red fox hoping for a diamond respawn, it won't happen unless you also harvest the female. So, if your map is suddenly overrun with female foxes or raccoon dogs, it's likely because you've been leaving their pair partners behind. Make sure to clear the pair to trigger proper respawns. However, the one thing you will have to know is by harvesting the pair, it deletes the zone and the pair will respawn anywhere in their home range. So be prepared to rediscover their zones, similar to solo zones. How do you avoid ruining a zone? While understanding zones is crucial, it's equally important to know to avoid breaking them. Zones can be unintentionally ruined if you don't manage your harvest carefully. For example, in pair zones, we know that if you harvest only one animal, the other won't respawn. A similar mechanic applies to herd zones, but with an additional complexity. If you harvest a herd down to just one animal, such as a single female, without allowing the respawns to occur, you risk breaking the zone. A frequent question I receive is, why is my herd zone stuck with one female and no males returning? This is likely happens due to the same mechanic that prevents pair respawns unless both animals are harvested. What do you do if a herd zone breaks? If your herd zone is reduced to one animal, like a single female, try harvesting the remaining animal. While we don't have enough data to say for certain, this might trigger a full respawn of the herd. So a key tip, if you notice only 2 animals in a herd zone and you're waiting for respawns, do not harvest either of them. Allowing the zone to stabilize will prevent breaking its entire herd. Let them respawn, give it time and patience. The great question is, and it's one that ties perfectly into our next topic, how long does it take for animals to respawn? Since the July 2024 update, Expansive Worlds has confirmed that respawns are working as originally intended from the base game when they created it. Here's what you need to know. The 15-minute rule, which, when you harvest an animal, it takes at least 15 real-life minutes of active play on the map for the respawn to occur. If you leave the map or switch to a different one, the respawns may be delayed. So the game time conversion, 1 real-life minute equals 4 in-game minutes. So 15 real-life minutes translates to about 1 hour in-game. So the variation in timing. While most animals respawn in this time frame, some species may take slightly longer or shorter to reappear based on factors like map activity and species behavior. From my observations though, 15 minutes is a sweet spot. I do know tigers apparently do take longer, and I do know that solo animals tend to be faster as they just have to create new zones. So they have to go somewhere else and you have to refine them, which is the long part of trying to find their respawn. This is why having 12 to 16 zones that you regularly harvest during a Great One grind is crucial. It saves time. By the time you've cycled through all your zones, 15 to 20 minutes in real life will have passed, meaning the zones you started at should already have the respawns ready for you. If you're grinding effectively, you'll never be stuck waiting for animals to return, you'll always have something to hunt. In my observations, I've noticed something that feels like an invisible respawn bucket at play in the game. Let me explain. When grinding for the Great One pheasant, I've found that respawns seem to trigger more effectively when I've harvested a certain number of animals, around 10 birds in this case. I know Scarecrow has seen the same thing with his whitetail grind on Layton Lakes. It's as if the game holds back on respawning animals until you've reached a specific threshold, and then once the bucket is full, the respawns are dumped back onto the map. This could explain why respawns generally take 15 real-life minutes to occur. It may not be just about the time, but also about the activity, filling that invisible respawn bucket by harvesting enough animals to reach the tipping point. What if your respawns are slow? If you're noticing slow respawns during your grind, it might just be because you're not harvesting enough animals to fill that bucket. Try increasing your harvest rate by focusing on more zones or taking additional animals, and you might see the respawns start to flow more consistently. This is just a theory based on my experience, but it seems to hold true in many scenarios. Give it a try and let me know if it works for you. Musical chairs may be an answer to a common question I get about respawns during the grind. Why do females sometimes respawn in zones where males were harvested? To answer this, let's think of animal respawns as a game of musical chairs. So here's the setup. Every map has a fixed population, as I said earlier in the video. Let's say 100 animals, divided across solo zones, pair zones, and herd zones. These zones are like chairs, and every animal has a place to sit in that specific chair. When you shoot an animal, its chair becomes vacant. The harvested animal will respawn, but it doesn't have to sit in its original chair. Instead, it will find any available chair in the population, whether that's back in its original zone or somewhere else. If you shoot both males and females in a grind, multiple chairs become available. When the music stops, which is the respawn time, animals find the nearest available seat. This sometimes results in a female swapping places with a male, depending on how respawns get distributed. During my pheasant grind, I noticed an interesting behavior tied to the spread of birdshot pellets from my 12-gauge cacciatore. Each shot contains 12 pellets, and sometimes if a female is too close to the male, stray pellets can hit and kill a bird you didn't intend to target. This happened to me recently when I accidentally shot a hen. On my next rotation, I noticed a shift. A zone that previously had 2 roosters and 4 hens now had 1 rooster and 5 hens. When I returned to the zone where I accidentally killed the hen, there was a second rooster in her place. They swapped zones. It's fascinating. Using herd management is a way of controlling the chairs. This concept of musical chairs is a key to understanding herd management. Here's how it works. You aim to move lower level animals like level 1 males to less important zones, your exterior or your secondary zones, by repeatedly harvesting them there until they are at a level that you want to leave them. Essentially makes them sit in chairs you don't care about. Meanwhile, you leave higher level males alone in your main grinding zones, so their respawns remain concentrated to the zones you want to use or the chairs that you want them to sit in. This helps you repeatedly farm large, high-level animals, increasing your chances for a diamond or potentially a great one to spawn. So why does it work? Because respawns are random in level, score, and fur variation, you're effectively managing the musical chairs by ensuring small animals stay at the tables you're not grinding, while your big animals only swap chairs at the zones you're targeting, basically making the musical chair game concentrated down from 100 chairs at the beginning of your grind down to 16 chairs with only large animals playing the game at the end. So my final tip, there will always be enough chairs for every animal in the population, but understanding how the respawn mechanics works allows you to use musical chairs to your advantage, optimizing your grind and controlling the population. Part 2 of the How Respawns Work series will focus on the numbers inside the game mechanics. That video will dive a bit deeper into the RNG of the mechanics in the ones and the zeros of the video game itself. It's a video you won't want to miss. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to leave a like, share your thoughts in the comments below, and subscribe for more guides and content. Thanks for watching, and as always, fellow hunters, happy hunting.